The girl was awakened in the middle of the night by the sound of the failed face unlock on her phone. When she opened the door, she found a murderer. At this time, her grandmother went out and mistook the murderer for her granddaughter. When the murderer turned around, the grandmother was surprised to find that the person in front of her was not her granddaughter. The girl wanted to run out to save her grandmother but was a step too late. Seeing the murderer slowly walking towards her, the girl hurriedly closed the door. But before she could think of a solution, the girl felt a pain in her back. The girl woke up in surprise and found that she was unexpectedly reborn and trapped in the cycle of life and death. Hearing the familiar voice outside the door, the girl quietly opened the door and found that she had returned to the minute before she was killed by the murderer. This time, the girl was determined to save her grandmother and herself. So she took the comb and threw it out while the murderer was not paying attention to attract the murderer's attention. Then she took advantage of the gap and ran into her grandmother's room. The girl wanted to take her grandmother's mobile phone to call the police, but found that her grandmother forgot to charge her mobile phone because her grandmother suffered from Alzheimer's disease. The girl was about to run out with her grandmother when the murderer turned back. Hearing the sound of someone unlocking the door with a key outside, the girl hurriedly asked her grandmother to hide under the bed. But she didn't expect that her grandmother had another dementia attack and was unwilling to go in because the bed was dirty. The murderer opened the door at this time, and the girl had no choice but to hide under the bed herself. The grandmother asked who the murderer was, but the murderer didn't say a word. The grandmother was killed again. The girl looked at her grandmother and swore that she would avenge her grandmother after she got out, but she was discovered by the murderer. The girl was killed again and entered the third cycle. Hearing the sound outside again, the woman determined that the other party was a woman in the last cycle, so she decided to fight her and planned to take advantage of the gap when the murderer entered the grandmother's room to launch a sneak attack. The girl counted and rushed out and hit the murderer on the head with a stick. But unexpectedly, the murderer grabbed her neck with his backhand. At the critical moment, the grandmother took the vase and knocked the murderer unconscious. After that, the girl successfully escaped from the room with her grandmother, but the murderer slowly woke up, and the girl and her grandmother were forced to hide in the neighbor's unlocked room. The girl just entered the house and was about to call the police, but found that the neighbors had been killed. After suppressing her fear and calling the police, she heard the murderer knocking on the door outside. The girl was sure that the other party was a lunatic and quickly asked her grandmother to hide, but the grandmother was very scared and said that she wanted to stay with the girl. The girl hurriedly coaxed her grandmother, but unexpectedly, the grandmother said that the person outside was not a bad person, and she had heard her voice. Seeing that the grandmother actually knew the murderer, the girl hurriedly asked, but she didn't expect the person outside to directly raise the axe.